Well, in this area behind me, we excavated 14 1.5 meter squares, two trenches that were 1 meter wide and 6 and 8 meters long. Along the path down at the end of this corridor that goes down to the beach, we excavated 4 1.5 meter squares, 3 more that we aborted after going down a couple of feet and finding out that we were in an old gully or ravine that led down to the beach. And we found 15 Native American sherds of the type of pottery that would have been made around in the 16th century by the North Carolina Indians. We did not find one single European artifact of the 16th century. So it's good news and bad news. The bad news is we didn't find anything of consequence that was related to the 1585 or 1587 colony. The good news is we didn't find anything of consequence from the 1585 or 1587 colony, so that there's really not a great concern about something of significance being endangered in this area. But of course we had hoped that we might find a little something to tell us more of the archaeological story anyway, of what went on here at the north end of Roanoke Island. While we were here, one sherd of olive jar was found on the beach, just to my right, below the dunes. And some collectors came to us to show us what they have picked up over the years on this beach and in other areas at the north end of Roanoke Island. And at least 2 more pieces of olive jar sherd were in their collections, which they said they found on this beach. So it's a little frustrating, but I think now we need to get together and review our previous assumptions based on what we found or what we didn't find here. Maybe most of those olive jars weren't coming out of the bluff, but because they were so water-worn, they could have been transported from other areas on the island. But our purpose for this particular project was to find whether or not there was anything of archaeological significance in this area that's subject to slow but continuous threat of erosion. And so I think we could check that off the list and say no, that there isn't. We've learned something about the landscape, which hopefully will be important in the big picture ultimately.
How many people were involved with this portion of the project?
Well, we were here for 2 weeks and averaged 8 to 9 people per week. Members of the First Colony Foundation, archaeological excavators and archaeologists that we brought in to supplement the First Colony Foundation team, and some very hard-working volunteers who showed up as well.
On this area now that it's all cleared out, what's its state going to be?
Well, I'm not sure, other than all of our test squares and trenches get backfilled. And I guess what ultimately happens to this is up to the Park Service. But again, you know, it's part of a small piece of the larger picture. We now can look at what we definitely know, which is the location of the scientific workshop from the 1585 colony, which is located immediately Outside the earthwork, if not underneath the earthwork, we know that about 400 feet west of it in the woods toward the Elizabethan garden is a buried land surface from which a few 16th century European artifacts were found. And we know that this seems to be a void for the most part. We can't eliminate it entirely because there was a barrel found in the low water. It's radiocarbon dated to the right period. So whether this was a landing of some sort where there wasn't a lot of material for us to find, all begins to form a little bit more of the picture for us.
Do you have a plan, next step, where you're going to be next?
Not entirely. I think the First Colony Foundation, or at least it's my thought, that the First Colony Foundation needs to have a one-day brainstorm, bring in some historians, some other researchers who've been thinking and studying all of the evidence of the lost colony and the 1585 colony, and talk about overall strategy. There are other places on Roanoke Island and Wanchese that evidence has recently come to light that suggests the possibility of interaction between the Roanoke colonists, perhaps, and Native American groups at that end. I've already mentioned the woods along the Harriet Trail, although neither of those, it seems, would lead us toward the sites of the fort in the village. We may find out that we want to go off Park Service property, or even off the island to a potential site where the lost colonists relocated when they moved. And so I think those sorts of decisions and possibilities need to be discussed further now that we've completed this project and where we want to put our resources and efforts in the future.